I'm excited to jump in with Sean, and so I'm going to let Sean go ahead and introduce himself.
Well, thank you for that opening. That was great. And I don't want to talk about myself too much because there's not a lot of time. It's not really worthwhile. I mean, you can find it, but I mean, honestly, I really want to talk most about how you get from 0 to take your idea to 100. And through that, you can learn a little bit about me and my journey.
Okay, so I'm going to toot Sean's horn a little bit, because if you have ever used Google StreetView, you have this gentleman to thank for the technology that is behind that product. So we're going to dive into all of that through this. So I want you to help us paint the picture from literal first idea about Bublcam all the way to the final exit. How many years was that full journey?
I guess the idea started probably around 2009, 2008, 2009. We were trying to work with, we were working with Toyota to launch their new car. They were they wanted to launch this vehicle, and they wanted to take the car and put it in the middle of the screen and be able to look at it from every possible angle. And the idea of creating a 360 view or full spherical view of an object wasn't really a thing. So we were like, okay, maybe we can work towards trying to create this new object, to get this new feature. And we really just were inundated. I was totally inundated with this idea of being able to create a 3D model and look at it from every possible angle. And after that, everything blew up. So between 2000, almost like 2007 till 2016, when we sold the company.
Okay, so that's like roughly like a 10-year period between like, oh, hey, I have this idea, to like, okay, here's the money. And I wanted to bring that up because the entrepreneurs in the room, the entrepreneurs here today, the ones who are going to be watching the recording, need to have an idea of how long things truly, truly take as an entrepreneur to start up. Because we always have these ideas that, oh my God, I'm going to make it big, it's going to be amazing. And it takes a long time and a lot of sweat to get there.
Exactly.
So let's go back to that beginning. What did those early days look like for you?
Well, I was already running a design development studio because I worked at advertising agencies, and I'd constantly hiring my friends to do tech work and giving them these crazy budgets. And I'm like, why am I giving them to these people? Like, my friends, I'll go start my own, and like I already had the agency. So I was running a studio with my friends. We were doing this project, and then all of a sudden we were like, okay, we can do more than just this project. We can actually create something for ourselves. And most agencies, they don't work that way. They're creating things for other people. And every so often, someone branches out and decides they're going to do something for themselves. And that's how, if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, that's what usually comes out of it. You kind of discover yourself. You have an idea, you have an urge, and you have to make it a reality. And it's not easy, though, of course, because like even then, we were making money, we were doing these things, we want to start our own idea, but at the same time, nobody wants to help you unless you actually have something ready, going, ready to show. Nobody wants to get involved. It's always get on board, ride the train up, but it's never put the keys in to start the train. No one's going to help you do that.
Yeah, so how long did it take to actually develop that first prototype, and what did that area of your life look like? Because we always hear about like the entrepreneur's struggles. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into like that time frame, because that's where I think a lot of people here specifically will also be in that time frame of like, okay, the struggle, but hopefully it pays off. So how long did it take to get from that idea to building that first prototype and be like, this is going to be a business?
Well, in like the first few years, I tried to do it on my own. Me and my partners, we were trying to figure it out. I didn't know anything about patents. I didn't know anything about legal. Like, I didn't realize all of the things that are going to be required. If you want to build a game-changing product, you better watch out for all the people who are going to try and take this product, take this idea, or actually look at it and say, oh, well, I have the legal team, I have the professional team. I might even build the product. I might just build the idea, protect it, and then come after you, right? The trolls are out there, and no matter what you're going to do. I didn't know anything about that. I had to learn it all. That took like 2 or 3 years just to like work through the idea, work to find out, does anybody do this already? And well, trying to figure out what's going to happen. I mean, things have changed since 2006, 2010. But I mean, at the same time, people need to figure out whether or not their idea is actually novel or if it's just, something that's a pastime. Because you can have a pastime idea and still make a lot of money. It's just, you gotta make sure you're willing to commit, because nobody wants to help, nobody gets involved, and then I think I probably started talking to, I don't know, like 60 different venture capitalists, angel investors with the idea, and nobody came to the table because I was just had like designs done, I had basic prototypes done, but they weren't functional until I sat down for coffee with a friend of mine who also had a design studio, and at coffee we're talking about new babies. We just had kids, and it was just like, okay, this is really hard, but we have all these ideas. And it's like, you know what? Let's build this stuff together. And I got my first $150,000 check from like a coffee talk about having new kids.
It just goes to show you never know where that first check is going to come from. I want to follow that thread a little bit. You brought up legal, and I know that you took time to actually learn about a lot of this because it's something that's not necessarily talked about a lot, but ideas do get stolen. People will take something that you've pitched them and run with it if they have the capabilities. So how much education did you do around that and also protecting your IP in that process?
Well, thank goodness I'm technically back. I like my technology background because I had to learn about patents real quick. And I had to learn about engineering, mechanical engineering real quick because I'm building a camera that I've never built before. Who am I to build a camera? But when you look into it, it took a couple years for me to figure out exactly how it took, like what the process was, and then finding out what the engineering requirements were, and then the documentation to actually write down and figure out how I'd protect myself and protect this technology. Like I have about 7 patents now. 4 of them were related to that first product, and it just took forever. It took a while, but you have to do the work.
Yeah. How important are patents?
It depends, because like nowadays you can do things really quick, get them out, make your money, and then when the patent rule comes for you, you just bank it and leave. I mean, like there's a lot of technology that's done that way. Although some of the larger technology backs right now that have happened, like if you're talking about building something in AI, in the next 2 to 5 years, you're going to see the amount of patent technology coming out around that because it still takes time. And one of the things that OpenAI was really good at was writing patents early. They came out, they started working on technology for about like 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think Figma is actually probably a great example of that too. They worked on their technology for about 3 years in stealth. Nobody knew what it was doing. All they were doing was building the tech, writing patents. They just wrote patents around what they were trying to do, and then 3 years later when they came out, no one could touch them. I mean, those are the type of things that help you build into a company that is VC ready. I mean, a lot of the times you have some type of protection. You go for VC money, they don't want to talk to you. You say, well, we protected this. Oh, the doors start to open.
Yeah, I know that, multiple questions we've had about the bow is, have you done your trademarking? Have you done that? Because protecting that intellectual property and how you look in the world is definitely very important for entrepreneurs. Were there any early on strategic choices that you made that you think really helped move the needle in a positive way for you early on?
I think the biggest thing that changed us was we had a physical product, so we were able to take advantage of like crowdfunding. And we decided we're going to do the crowdfunding thing. I think it was like 2013. We launched Kickstarter. We were Canada's fastest raised Kickstarter at the time. We raised $100,000 in like 12 hours. And after that, we raised about I think we closed it down at around 350,000. And it was just like, that changed everything for us. But it doesn't always work depending on the nature of your product. Like we had a physical product that we can actually provide all these tools and guidelines and perks around. So that really helped. And then partnerships really helped. And advertising, with like Kickstarter at the time in 2013, it was a thing. We were able to take advantage of that really early.
Do you think that physical products in some ways can be easier to pitch or sell because there's a tangibility to it that maybe digital or etheric products don't necessarily have, and it's harder to get investment in those ideas versus I kind of have this physical product that you can play with?
It can be. It depends, because like a physical product is something that people can connect with easily. And people connect with physical things all the time. So it's so much easier to get your message out, to have people use it and play with it. I mean, it definitely makes a difference. But the nature of your software or your digital platform, that also makes a difference. Because what we're doing with the Bow, it's really hard to get VC dollars, primarily because a lot of VCs don't see a television screen as a product that they can distribute new technology to. However, you design a fintech, and all of a sudden, all these doors open for you. So it all comes down to what's trending, what VCs can connect themselves to, and people can connect themselves to products so much easier than anything else.
Yeah, definitely there is a what's sexy at the moment, and you mentioned AI, and it's like, oh, here's the money, but if you're not focused on that, it definitely is a different landscape currently right now.
But those doors are changing, actually. I work for a VC, I work with LvlUp Ventures, and those doors have been for the past maybe 6 to 8 months, it's everyone's trying to figure out that, AI in your product doesn't always make sense. And if you can't figure out how AI is going to improve the quality or service you're going to have with your customers, then why are you even talking about it? I mean, it's changing that landscape's changing.
I have definitely heard conversations around, is the investment worth it? Right now, people are kind of having that conversation of oh, well, there's all these billions of dollars over here. Are we really seeing that potential coming back in return? Or is this just a really good text predictor, which it is right now, but we don't know where it's going in the future, and that's what people are betting on. I talked about strategic choices that really help move the needle. Was there anything that early on you made the choice strategically and actually was detrimental, or a warning that you could?
Partnerships. Oh, God. I wish I realized how crazy things get with partners earlier than I did. Because I was used to building businesses, building products, and building teams. And that stuff was easy. But building my investment team and then building my board, I had very little experience in that. And I wish I had more experience with that before, because someone explained it to me once, and I'll never forget it. It's one of the advisors from Inkwell. He said, become the bow tie CEO. So it's you have your team and your company coming to you, and you're the centerpiece, right? So you have to build your team, and it all funnels down to you. But you also have your board and your public team, and that all funnels down to you too. And if you can't control everything, your tie just kind of goes all crazy and everything. You want a perfect bow tie, you better be able to control both sides of the organization.
Yeah, this is why we're glad we have Sean with us. What moment did you experience on your journey that really was kind of that significant game changer that completely changed the trajectory of where you were going with Bubl when you were putting it all together?
So after we did the Kickstarter and we signed on maybe 15 different investors, we went to California, we're in San Francisco, one of my COO was doing a pitch, and I'm sitting in the crowd, and the next thing you know, this guy from Samsung Ventures goes up, and he's just I really like what you're doing. And it's oh, okay. And I realized at that time that getting out to events, being out and about, makes all the difference. It can make all the difference. And so we sat down, we talked. Samsung became one of our largest investors. They put $1.5 million into the company, and then we ended up exiting to them anyway. And then they built a whole other camera around it.
There has been a lot of talk about investment and investors here, and there's been a number of panels. What's your experience with what I like to call dating your investor? From that first introduction, whether it be warm or cold, what's your experience in that world?
So nowadays, it's a lot different than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you had an idea. Sometimes, I remember sitting with some guys who were I think it was overhearing a conversation. Some guys were talking about SpaceX, and they're okay, we have to do this whole investment thing. And these guys were just at another table and listening to it and they were oh, we heard you guys talking about that. Is that a real thing? And they're it's kind of a real thing, but we might make it a real thing. Oh, I'll give you some money. Those type of things actually happen. I've seen it. Nowadays, it's it really comes down to there's a personal relationship that you have to have. The investment team or the venture firm or the angel hears about what you're doing. they have the conversation, they watch it for a little while, and you date. And it's so much more like this personal relationship that you have with your investment group that it didn't always have to be. I mean, people used to write checks crazily before. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, the landscape is definitely different, especially in the environment we're in right now. Let's move to the end of that journey. You've developed Bublcam. It's going great. It's this 10-year process. How does the end of that journey look for you? Because I know you mentioned like partnerships and all these different navigating pieces. So speak to that.
So the bubble story, kind of the bubble burst. And that happens with a lot of companies. And it's funny because it's like, we had an investor come in from China, and it turns out that they were like a Chinese political party, and they wanted to take the tech to China, which was happening a lot at the time. So they took the IP, they tried to bankrupt the company, try to keep us from getting any money. And I was like, okay, you know what, I want no part of this. I'm great. You know, I sold out my shares. We sold the company, like part of the company, to the Chinese group. We sold the part of the company to Samsung, and we were just like, everyone just parted ways. So, you know, it was a crazy time. And as soon as we did, it's like all these people came out and said, hey, that happened to me. Or, hey, that happens all the time. And none of these people show up before it happens. So it's like there is this incredible pocket of failure that happens. And there's so many people who find success from failure that you have to try and find those people early. Because like, if you can connect with the people who know both sides of the story, yes, resounding success and market crash, but you know what, at the same time, everybody can come out unscathed. And everyone can benefit from it in the future, but you have to understand the market, you have to understand how these things work, and you have to pick your partners correctly, because you know, some people are really, really ambitious, and you know that ambition can turn into greed really quickly.
Yeah, that's why it's really important to have mentors and advisors. They were on stage yesterday, Bobby Reset, and that panel, they were talking about how important it is to surround yourself with really great advisors, really great mentors who can help navigate these spaces for you, especially if you're in those early stages. I want to kind of wrap things up with how did that technology then find its way to Google StreetView and kind of like what people recognize of it?
So when we actually built out the camera technology, that was one thing, but it was the software. It was being able to provide a spherical view of a product or a video or a photo and being able to distribute that across multiple digital platforms. When we put our StreetView platform, like our 360 video and 360 imagery technology on Twitter, and we were allowing people to embed it across their Twitter feeds, it blew everything up. I mean, all of a sudden, we're getting all these calls from people who have said, we're like, oh, we have our own HTML-based embedding software. It's like, yeah, well, ours works specifically with our camera, and ours works specifically to distribute other types of cameras. Yours does not. So when we started doing all these things, it's like, we got these calls. Like, we got calls from Google, we got calls from YouTube, for YouTube 360, which we helped to develop. And then we got calls from like NASA, because they're like, how do we put this on the Mars rover? And, we ended up doing that too.
Okay, so that came after you kind of stepped away from it, all these other things?
Oh no, that came in while I was there.
Okay.
Like literally, we put the camera out, we did our Kickstarter, we took the technology, we said, okay, hardware is cool, but software can be better. We used that mandate in order to like distribute spherical technology, which is still used today. Like if you use StreetView now, I mean, like it's based on all the stuff we were working on. We helped inundate what they delivered on, and it's still there today. YouTube 360 and StreetView still use the technology backing that innovation that we worked on with them.
Yeah, and you're still playing in that world. So you've sold out, you had a great time, now you're living your next life entrepreneurship. What adventures are you going on these days? So
part of the reason why I actually got involved with the Bow was because we've been looking at utilizing television as a platform. Rather than just using it as a streaming, we can use it as a streaming platform, which we have to do, and that's what we're used to doing it, but there's so many other things we can use it for, because for a long time, the problem was 10-foot UI. Like, when you looked at a screen from a distance, you couldn't look at fine small things. It always had to be blown out. Well, that's not the case today. If you're using like Prime Video's app, or you're using Netflix app, have you ever realized how small the text is that you can read from a far distance? the technology's changed, and with connected televisions being pretty much wall-hung computers, the technology is changing there too. So I'm really looking into how we can evolve that.
Yes, we're really looking forward to continuing all the crazy, amazing things we're doing with the bow together. Let's kind of wrap things up. Do you have any sage advice for anybody here today or anybody who might be listening to this later about your journey, whether that be pros or cons for founders or entrepreneurs?
Anybody who's going to start any business has to understand that going from zero to like paying yourself, or which is what I call success, taking care of yourself and your family with whatever it is your love affair is for this whatever product it is, being able to do that, that time can be very long. So, you know, buckle in, get ready for the ride. I mean, sometimes it's just like it's a quick, but most of the time, it's going to take work, time, and effort, and sacrifice. And if you're willing to do it, then there can be a lot of payoff in the end.
What do you think, if you could give one thing to that, what would change that for a new entrepreneur?
Well, there's nothing that can change it other than the concept and like being able to get from idea to concept. That's the only thing that changes anything.
So get there the fastest. So like mentors, advisory, building yourself a good team.
Well, after you have a product, then you have to think about a business. And a product and a business are two very different things. And if you're going to understand both, then you're in the best possible position. But if you think that your product is a business, then you better go out and do your homework.